Good morning. It's kind of loud inside here. The sound goes back.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. That's what I was looking for, a response. Well, welcome to today's service. I'm not Dave Pereira. He skipped town. And so I want to do a few announcements here. One of the things we want to do is mention the Samaritan's Purse Christmas boxes. You can get them out there in the foyer. And also, sign up for a song. If you go out there on the table, there's a list of the songs that are still available, and there's a little brochure next to it that kind of explains what we're doing. I think the deadline is the 15th, so that gives you plenty of time to pick a song, write a little bit of thing about it, what it means to you, and then we'll get them all turned in, and then I'm not exactly sure how they're going to do it, but I'm sure somebody knows. But yeah, I encourage you to grab a song and write how it encourages you, what it means to you.
A song, not a song.
Song, not a song. If you want to write a song, that's perfect too. We can use it up here. Anything else to see in your bulletin? Just look what's in there. I don't think there's anything else I need to bring up. We'll get right into worship of the Lord. If you'd like to stand, I encourage you to stand.
It's really special to me. My grandfather passed away about a month ago,
In the last 6 months of his life, he had a little packet of old worship songs, and this one was like his favorite. And he really loved the last verse here. It says, "And then one day, I'll cross that river. I'll fight life's final war with pain. And then as death gives way to victory, I'll see the lights of glory, and I'll know he lives." Let's sing together.
God sent his son. They called him Jesus. He came to love, heal and forgive. He
podium over here. You would think there'd be so much to change. You know, it's just me. But it is so good to be with you guys. And let me just say how much I value this church and love this church, and how much you guys mean to Kathy and I. What a joy it is to be able to serve and work with you. God is doing some incredible things in this place. He's changing all of us. And I guess that's the way God always does. When God shows up, you're not the same. And today we're going to see that and appreciate that more and more. I have a special message today that I'd like to share. It's one that I think, as a pastor, from time to time, you see some things and you feel some things, and as you pray, you let God lead you as best you can, and you recognize that there are sometimes some difficult things that need to be shared, and today is one of those times. So I'm going to ask you to put on your ears as if you don't have one, but if you pay special attention today, I think, and my prayer is that God will work in our midst. And that goes the same for all of you who are Zooming online. It's a unique time for us. We've got people that are here, which is great, and we also have people that are at home watching, which is also good as well. But why don't we start with a prayer? Father, this is difficult, just to be able to sit here with a mask or a face shield on. We don't like this. It's not comfortable. It's not anything we'd ever thought about doing. And so, Father, we come to you because we know that the virus that's in our land grieves you. But we also know, Father, that the virus of sin that's in our land grieves you even more, and it grieves us. So God, we ask that you will speak to us today. We are trying to listen to you. We want to be your people, in and out. May your spirit live in us today. May you heal our land. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. I'm not exactly sure where or when it was. I know it was sometime in the 80s, but I do know where I was. It started when I happened to be in an elders conference room at a church in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And the discussion was going on among men that I knew well and I loved and I respected, but there was something that was just churning inside of me. And to be honest, I can't remember exactly what it was that we were discussing. But I do vividly remember what the discussion prompted later on. When the elders meeting ended, there were three of us as ministers that decided that we need to go talk some things out. And so we had a meeting after the meeting. Have you ever been in one of those meetings? A meeting after the meeting, and we decided that we would go to IHOP. In fact, you'll see I've entitled this lesson, The Wondrous Challenge of the Church. You could also call it, if you wanted to, The Revelation at IHOP. So we went to IHOP because after an extensive research, the three of us had found that this particular IHOP had the best huevos rancheros in town. And so we sat there in front of a plate of eggs and green chili and started talking. And the question that we wrestled with was this one. What do you do if you ask God to grant your leaders guidance and wisdom, and then those same leaders choose a direction that makes no sense? Have you ever been there? You pray for the men that you love, and you ask God, will you please give them wisdom and direction? And then when they make a decision that you go, well, that just doesn't sound right. How do you reconcile what you've been doing? You can either say, my prayer life must be hurting really bad because maybe God is not hearing my prayers. Or you can say, maybe God is working with those leaders and he's trying to teach them something, maybe through their failure. And if that's the case, if I speak up, am I actually working against what God is trying to do? Well, the good news is, I think there is a resolution to this question. But in order to understand it clearly, allow me to set the stage. If you have your Bibles, please open them to 1 Peter chapter 2. We're going to start reading in verse 4. As you come to him, the living stone, rejected by humans, but chosen by God and precious to him. He's talking about Jesus, of course. You also, like living stones, are being built into a spiritual house to be a holy priesthood, offering spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. And then he goes on in verse 9, or 8, but you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special or treasured possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. Once you were not a people, now you are the people of God. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. This is an incredible, incredible passage because it's talking to us about something that I think we tend to fail to remember. What we fail to recognize is that we are being built, the next slide please, we are being built into a spiritual house unlike anything else that's here on earth. There's a unique thing that's happening. Peter is saying that as we're coming to Jesus, he takes the group of us and he's changing all of us into something else. We become the spiritual house, the temple. And the temple is where God can most easily be seen. That's who we are. To Peter's original hearers who read this passage, they were quickly reminded of something that occurred way back in the Old Testament. And you probably recognize it as well. It happened in Exodus chapter 19 when Moses was about to receive the Ten Commandments. This is what the text says. Then Moses went up to God, and the Lord called to him from the mountain and said, "This is what you are to say. Now if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all the nations you will be," here it is, "my treasured possession. Although the whole earth is mine, you will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words you are to speak to the Israelites." Something was about to occur that day. God was about to come down to the Mount Sinai, and there he was going to give Moses the law, the Ten Commandments, and the people were about to be changed dramatically. And before this happened, Moses instructs the people, don't touch the mountain, don't come to the mountain, God's going to be here. His glory is going to be present. And when he came, there was smoke and thunder, and the mountain itself trembled from the very presence of God. And in some way, what Peter is saying is that you and I together, the church, I can't really explain it. All I can tell you is the same thing is happening. Together, we are more than a group of people. We are the place where God breaks out. You and I both understand that when we become followers of Jesus, he does something unique. He puts his Spirit within each of our hearts. But collectively, when we gather together, he is also doing something unique. His Spirit is living among us. That's why Jesus said in Matthew 18, where 2 or 3 are gathered together, there I am in the midst. In the midst of us this morning, the Spirit of Christ is here. In the midst of us this morning, the Spirit of Christ is changing us and making us into a spiritual temple where God can easily be seen. I don't think we really grasp that. Remember Isaiah 6, an incredible passage about the temple. Isaiah is one who went to the temple fairly often. And on this particular time, he goes to the temple and he sees this incredible vision. He sees the glory of God on display. And the power of God fills the room, and he is overwhelmed with God's very presence. And he says, "Woe is me," because God came down that day. And Isaiah was forever changed. He found forgiveness, and he found purpose. That's what it means to gather together. We find purpose, and we find forgiveness here. We're not just a club. We're just not a group of people. We're the place where the Spirit of God resides. We're the place where God breaks out. Do you believe that? Do you believe that? You see, we tend to think, well, that just happened back then. Surely that's just Peter's thoughts. I think I can prove it to you historically. In 1856, there was a unique thing that happened. This man here, his name, let me get to it so I get things right. James McQuilton is his name. He happened to live in Northern Ireland, and eventually it's what's called the Ulster Revival broke out in all of Northern Ireland. You know how it started? It started because of Mrs. Colville happened to move from England to Ireland. And she, when she got to that area, decided that she wanted to go and just meet people and tell them more about Jesus. And so she went from door to door and started talking to different people. And she felt like her entire efforts really were nothing more than a waste of time. But in one of the conversations that she had, there were two women who were talking primarily with her. And James